far. I hope you enjoyed your morning's festivities. It is my distinct pleasure this afternoon to be able to introduce our keynote speaker. Kate Otto is a native Rhode Islander. She's a graduate of Cumberland High School. She's the author of the best-selling book, Everyday Ambassador, Make a Difference by Connecting in a Disconnected World. The inspiration for her book is rooted in her career as a global health consultant. Her role leading health innovations through projects with the World Bank, the U.S. Agency of International Development, the various grassroots organizations have taken her to places like Ethiopia, Gandhi, Tanzania, Mozambique, and many more. She's a proud member of the Academy of Achievement, the Reynolds Program in Social Entrepreneurship, and the World Economic Forum Global Shapers, just to name a few. Kate earned her BA in International Relations and her MPA in Health Policy and Management, both from New York University. And as though that wasn't enough, Kate is currently pursuing her medical degree. She's at New York University and she plans to focus in primary care. I can personally attest, I've known Kate for a lot of years, and I can personally attest that this is an incredibly bright, talented, beautiful human being who's made a profound impact on the communities that she served. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Kate Otto.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is such a pleasure and honor to be here. As Michelle said, I'm a native Rhode Islander, and so I love any chance I get to come home to Rhode Island and spend time here, especially with fellow Rhode Islanders who really care a lot about wanting to do good things in the world and make a difference. So as Michelle mentioned, I'm author of the book, Everyday Ambassador, Make a Difference by Connecting in a Disconnected World. And the story behind this book is that basically after I graduated high school from Cumberland High School in 2004, I spent the next several years of my life in college in New York City studying international relations and actually going abroad. I did abroad in Ghana and Tanzania and South Africa, getting really interested in public health issues and trying to help people on topics like that. I then built a career in public health living in Indonesia and Ethiopia, and really liked thinking of new innovative ways to try to help people around the world who are going through issues like different illnesses and poverty and lack of education. And I saw all the time that usually the solutions people think up, and the ones I was involved in, had a lot to do with new technologies and new innovations. And I'm sure that all of you are seeing that every day in the classroom and in your work, and maybe even pioneering some of them yourself. And that's great, and that's wonderful, and we're going so far ahead in the world because of some of these technologies. But at the same time, I was also noticing that there was oftentimes a lack of simple human connection. There's a lot of digital connection and innovation, but not always the human relationship basis of what it means to really make a difference in someone's life. And so I noticed that discrepancy not just around me in communities or in work projects, but I saw it within me as well. I felt very conflicted about the desire to want to connect with people, but feeling like I was always on my phone or always caught up in certain technologies. And so I started writing ideas and thoughts. I put a blog together about these different travel experiences and thoughts, and that blog then turned into this book, Everyday Ambassador. And so I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about what I mean by what is an everyday ambassador. So I thought the best way to do that would be to pull directly from all of you. So I wanted to highlight a few people who I know are from the CCRI community who are recently honored alumni in this situation. So you might know some of these people. I know some of these people are here today, which I did not know was going to be the case, so I'm really happy about that. But so Kathleen is not only an alumni of CCRI, she is the vice president of Bank Newport. She works in community relations. She ensures that the bank has great relationships with the community, with local NGOs, with local schools. So you don't need to go travel to Africa and be in some far off place. You can be an everyday ambassador and be doing amazing things in your community by making stronger relationships between your workplace and the community and making sure that good things get done through those connections and those relationships. Candida is also an alumni. She ended up going through dentistry school. She now owns her own dental practice and is always supporting free dental care to the underserved who can't afford it. So she's a great example of someone who, again, doesn't need to travel to a far-off land to do great things, to make connections, to bridge gaps of what's really needed in a very human connection-based way. And Rosemary, of course, who we have the honor of having right here on stage, served as an ICU nurse and did service herself on the front lines of providing care to people, but now is responsible for and has trained the future of nurses in this state and medical professionals in general. So being an everyday ambassador, although in my case I was traveling around the world and going to different countries, it certainly does not have to be that. You can be an everyday ambassador and serve right in your own community. The idea is that you are making an effort to make connections with other people, human connections. It's not just about finding new digital ways to connect and help people. It's about the human relationship and the human component involved. And so these are quotes from these three people. CCRI is the college that provided me with such a valuable foundation. It changed my life, empowered me to confidently adopt a lifelong learning philosophy. What I want to suggest to all of you is that whether you know it or not, all of you are everyday ambassadors. Your service to this community, your service to the students here, supporting them, supporting their dreams, and what they are able to then become makes you also everyday ambassadors. So even if it's a term that's new to you today, it's something that you have already been doing through your service to the students here. So although you are everyday ambassadors, you're making connections with students, you're helping and supporting them, it's not something that's easy. And this is what I try to get at in the book and why I had a whole book about it and why it wasn't just a short poem or something shorter. Because it's not easy. It is not easy to build strong human connections. And I think that can be deceptive because you could think, oh, of course, I'll just say hi to someone or I'll just make an initial connection. But actually forming relationships that are going to last over time and last through difficulties perhaps, it takes a lot of work. And there's a few obstacles, especially at a place like this. I was reading up on the latest on CCRI, and almost 75% of students here are part-time. So it's not as if you're coming in every day and seeing students every single day to build continuous relationships. You might only see them once a week. Also, there's a record high number now of students who are racial minorities, which is wonderful, and the school's becoming more diverse. And community colleges across the country is oftentimes the place where you have diverse student bodies. But that also means that you might be confronted with students who are not from your background or whose lifestyle or upbringing you might not be familiar with. So it might be harder to make a connection with someone whose life you don't inherently understand. There's also 4 campuses across the state. So I'm from Rhode Island too, so I can joke that sometimes we think something is far when it's not really that far. But 4 campuses is a lot, and you're not seeing your fellow faculty every day. I think one of the most special things about today, from what I understand, is that you actually get to spend time together as faculty and see one another, because that isn't always something that you get to do. You're communicating probably by email or in digital ways. And also you have a wide age range of students. So even when you're in the classroom and you do get that time, I'm saying age here, but also life experience. There's a lot of diversity in your student body so that it's not like you're only dealing with one specific subset of people. It's people from all walks of life and all different experiences. So the idea of being an everyday ambassador is being able to make really strong human connections, and that is what makes a difference in the world. That's what changes things. But making those human connections can be very difficult when there's obstacles like this. And on top of some of these obstacles we have, there's also this component that I introduced this topic with of, in a world where we're more digitally connected than ever before, we can all too often be less humanly connected. So I'm going to suggest a couple scenarios, and I want you to just raise your hand if it's something that you've either seen happen in the past week or you've actually done yourself in the past week. So a classic one is when you're at the dinner table or out to dinner and at least one person is texting on their phone during the meal. It happens, right? Or if you're actually in a conversation with someone and they'll interrupt it to pull out their phone and take a call or to send a text message. So these are things, I love technology. I use it all the time for everything. My life relies on it, and I'm a big fan of it. So my point is not that it is a bad thing at all. my point is that some of these digital tools have allowed us to be present in more than one place at once so that we aren't being present when we are actually with people. And so what the whole book is actually about is addressing all those different ways in which we end up becoming a little bit more divided because of these tools, and how we can then fix those things in our lives so we can still enjoy technological tools and use them not only in our classrooms, or not only in our workplaces, but in our homes to make things better for our communities, for our families, for our students. But we can also strengthen our human connection component, because at the end of the day, digital tools are just tools. They're there to help us achieve what our goals are and our missions are. But if we don't have the underlying foundation of a human connection, then it's very difficult for those tools to make a difference in our lives. So there are 4 main values that the book goes into that in my journey I found were the most helpful to me in trying to make a difference in the world and strengthen that human connection. The first is empathy, the second is focus, the third is patience, and the fourth is humility. They're certainly not the only values that I needed to figure out in order to make strong human connections, but they were 4 that really mattered to me. And I'm going to talk through a couple examples of these so I can make clear what I mean by each of these words. And I'm going to start actually right here in Rhode Island, in Cumberland. So empathy, what I consider this to be is being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, acknowledging that you're not from the same background or have the same experiences as them, but you would still like to have a relationship with them and get to know them. So this picture here is from the House of Compassion in Cumberland. Has anyone ever heard of the House of Compassion before? Okay, so we have a few people here. So the House of Compassion is essentially there's a woman in Cumberland who decided to open her home to people who were living with HIV and had nowhere to go. And in the 80s and early 90s were dying because medication wasn't available yet to help them. But over time, as medicine has become available, she's literally opened her home to house homeless people living with HIV who need support and help. And when I was in high school, this house is right down the street from Cumberland High School, I used to spend a lot of time there. I used to spend a lot of time, we had quote unquote service projects, which were cutting the lawn and helping to cook meals. But really what we spent most of our time doing was just chatting with and getting to know people who live there. It's not like you're going and tiptoeing around people and just doing things in the house. You're just hanging out, really. So it actually didn't feel at the time like I was really doing anything or doing anything to make a difference in someone's life. But in retrospect, after many years, you realize that cultivating that empathy of people whose lives were very different from my own, who I did not have the same life experience as, who faced challenges I had never even heard of before, never mind experienced before, helped me to open my mind, open my own horizons, be able to connect with them in a way that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to. And in the long term, now that we still have friendships decades later, you realize it's not necessarily that immediate kind of service and to-do list that you check off that makes the difference. It's the empathy of getting to know someone who's very different and opening your mind to that makes a difference in the world, because then both the people you're with and yourself, you go on to be able to have a more open mind as you continue in your life in other fields and in other workplaces, in school, to be more open to not making immediate judgments about people and to seeing people as fellow human beings. So that was an experience that from the very beginning kind of taught me that if I wanted to make relationships with people, if I wanted to make a difference in the world, empathy was going to have to be the first thing that I had. The second is focus, and so I'm pulling one picture here that's representative of a few different experiences I had, both in Ghana and in Tanzania. I was, from my work in Cumberland, was very interested in HIV/AIDS and trying to help solve this very big problem. And so I had the chance to go to 2 sub-Saharan African countries where HIV, even into the 2000s, was still a big issue and people didn't have medication. So it was like America in the 80s was these countries in the 2000s. And what I ended up doing, after kind of initially feeling very overwhelmed at how much there was to do, was partnering up with a couple of schools and doing HIV/AIDS education programs with a small group of students in both places. And so the reason why I put focus down as something that's important is because I think it's very common nowadays to be able to multitask so much and there's so much to do, that it can be very easy to get overwhelmed and get into a state of then not really doing anything to begin with. And so I just decided to focus on a few people. So sometimes we see, so in education, it might be the number of students who aren't getting a college education or the amount of people who aren't even able to finish their degree. It seems like such a big problem in the same way that looking at how many people are affected by this disease, I wanted to just focus in on a very specific group of people. I wasn't going to save or help a ton of people, but if I could actually make a difference in a few people's lives, that was much better than having given up and not doing anything at all. The next one is patience. So this was a really important one, maybe more so for millennials than for others, but with technology, we're just so used to everything working so quickly, and anything you need is right back at you right away. And if someone doesn't text back within a few minutes, you think there's a problem. Everything's just quick, quick, quick. And a lot of the places I've been, other parts of the world, even though people still have the same technology as we do, culture just moves a little bit of a slower pace. And if anyone here is from a different country, you probably know that American culture tends to be really fast-paced and really to the beat of a certain drum. As was mentioned in the bio, I used to work for Alicia Keys, which was very cool. She runs an HIV/AIDS organization that helps basically kids whose parents have died of HIV in countries like South Africa. And I used to get to go travel there, spend time with these kids. And one thing that was really clear to me, that I'm sure is clear to you in the education field as well, is that sometimes you have to invest a lot of money and time in people and in relationships because of these people you care about and want to help. And even though you invest a lot of money and time, things might not go according to plan or on schedule. Things don't happen quickly. Change does not happen immediately. And whether you're having a student in your class who has a lot of other things going on in their life and it's hard for them to reach certain goals, or whether it's something going on in your workplace and someone else who you really need a change to happen fast, you'd like to see change happen fast, and it just seems like there's still some resistance to it. Making change takes a long time. It might take more time than even the role that you're in, the length of the role that you're in. It doesn't mean that it's not worth it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't still do it. It means that, in my experience, I needed to have a lot more patience and just understand that the amount of effort and time I put in was not going to equal an exact immediate result. And that didn't mean I was failing. That didn't mean that it was bad. It's that I know nowadays we have to measure outputs and outcomes and be able to show that there's a delivery on the things we're investing in. But at the same time, especially with relationships and with people, it's not going to happen immediately, and it's important to be patient with ourselves and with our workplaces and our communities. So the last one is humility. My latest work I've been doing is very technology-based. It's designing mobile phone-based applications for healthcare workers in places like Ethiopia, where they have to walk so far to deliver care to people that if they could have a mobile phone, it's a very simple premise. You have a mobile phone where you can just call or text or have an app to be able to manage your data or contact people. It literally saves people's lives. And so it was very interesting because I approached this work as a Westerner, someone from America, thinking that I was bringing a very cool innovation to a place where this could make a big difference. And yes, there were some pieces of it that I might have had some expertise in, but it ultimately was Ethiopian engineering students who designed the entire tool, and Ethiopian healthcare workers who were the users, who designed the user experience, who made it an actual viable product, and then the local doctors who actually put it into practice. So it took a lot of humility. I think it takes, and it doesn't require you to go to Ethiopia to do this, but sometimes when we approach something where we think we are an expert, think we bring an expertise, and we don't necessarily listen and think about the other things everyone else has to offer, we might not get the best final product, we might not get the best actual change in the end. And so being able to be vulnerable, to admit that maybe I don't have all the expertise and I need help from other people, it might seem like something uncomfortable to do, but it actually yields the best end product sometimes. So I've given you some examples of these 4 values that I encountered and that I found were really helpful. And for me, the distance was based on kind of latitude and longitude. I was going to faraway places where the culture is obviously very different, and you're creating human relationships across those actual borders of time and space. But what I want to suggest, and what I suggest in the book, is that the distance is not just a physical distance. It could also be having a different opinion than somebody. The idea of a distance between you could just be your ideology, your philosophy, your upbringing, So even if you've literally both, you and your student, you and your coworker, you both grown up in Rhode Island, you're both from here, there still could be a lot of differences between you. There could still be a lot of things in the way of building a strong relationship, and therefore in the way of seeing a good, positive change happen. And so being an everyday ambassador, which is what I really see all of you as, is someone who can see those differences and still try to overcome them and build bridges.